Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Thanks for tuning in today. Those of you that are brand new, I'm Larilyn with House of Akoti Design. Everything on the channel is all about sewing, my love of design, as well as embroidery. So I have several different projects that I'm working on always at the same time, but today I'm focusing on a pair of loungewear. So I'm working with the pattern, it's Simplicity 2290. And that's a picture. It's very, very basic pattern. It's one piece that you have that's cut out here. I can put that in the view of the camera. And you're going to need two of those. So I actually have one piece that's already cut out. So basically you have a front and a back that's at one piece. And the way to distinguish that, you want to make sure you have your notches marked on your pattern. You're going to see one notch. One side has two notches and that's the front, and the back pants will have three notches. So I went in and I clean finished all of my edges here. I also have a pocket that I'm going to add that wasn't a part of the pattern that I'm going to add to the back of these lounge pants or pajama pants or whatever you'd like to call it. And today I will be sewing this on my Singer 201. That's one of the vintage sewing machines. I'm a collector now. I have four of these. I have the treadle that I fully refurbished. It was really hideous when I found it, but it's beautiful now, and I do have that on the channel. I have the Rocketeer, I have the 66, and I also have, what is the other one? Oh, it's the 1590. I have a 1590. So a total of four. So I'm still looking for a featherweight. Haven't come across that one yet. Keeping my fingers crossed. All right, so the first thing you're going to do once you've cut out your two pieces, and remember that one piece, it's considered one side the front, one side the back. You want to fold those inseams together. And what I'm going to do is basically stitch down the side of this inseam here. You're then going to take one pant leg and do the same thing to the other side, and you're going to turn it right side out, and you're going to place that side inside of the other side, both legs, so that your right sides are facing together. And then basically you're just going to stitch up the inseam, and you'll actually have two fronts and two backs that are connected. Love this pattern. Very, very simple. Of course, there are other traditional ways to sew pants and pajama pants, but this is one of the very, very beginner friendly pattern to use. So if you have family members or kids, grandkids that love loungewear, and who doesn't love a good pair of loungewear, this is the pattern of choice. And I'm pretty sure you can still find this. I purchased this years ago at Joann's, I believe, but otherwise you can find most things online. So I'm going to take this over to my Singer 201 and start stitching down this inseam. Now, a bit of advice when you're dealing with plaid, you want to make sure when you're cutting the fabric that you're going to pick a dominant pattern. So if you either pick the large blue squares or you're going to pick this tinier multicolored piece here, you want to cut your hem either along something like this or pick a dominant pattern of the red, and make sure everything is nice and even and aligned. And you want to do the same thing for both pant legs. You want to make sure your fabric is even, and when you're making that cut, you want to make sure your inseam is aligned properly with a dominant, area. Your out seam for this one, because technically it's not really a seam here because it's that one piece. If you did cut these pajama pants traditionally, where you have your two fronts and your two backs, you want to make sure that your out seam or side seam is also aligned nicely, so that what's on this side you also see, on the other side. But I should be good there. All right, here we go with sewing. Okay, so usually to demonstrate and check the quality of my stitches and the tension on these older machines, you try to pick a fabric that's similar in weight to what you're sewing with. So this is also a piece of woven fabric that I have here. I have everything threaded through, and I do have a video on the channel of how to thread these. But this particular machine, once your spool of thread is here, you pull it over to the left, and you're going to thread through these tension disc here. And while you're holding on to the spool of thread with one hand, you're going to lift up on the thread that you've pulled around the tension disc, because you want them to go around that little loop that you see right here, okay? And then, I'm sorry, let's backtrack. Once you go through the spool of thread here, you're gonna go through your first thread guide, and then it's gonna come through your tension disc. And as you're holding on to the spool of thread with one hand, the other hand, you're gonna allow that thread to go through this little thread loop here. It's gonna go up through the highest thread guide here. It's gonna feed its way down, and you're gonna go through this thread guide. There's another one on the needle bar. There's another smaller one here. And again, your needle, with the shaft, the flat part, it's facing to the left, because you're going to thread your thread from right to left, okay, like some of the industrial machines, okay? So moving on to the stitches. I do have another video on the channel that shows how to go through finding and setting the number of stitches per inch, or your SPI, on these older machines. You don't have to do that with the newer machines. It's all automatic for the most part. You just choose how wide you want the stitch, whether you want a basting stitch or whether you want something in between. But for these, it's pretty manual. So I have this one set at about 10 stitches per inch. Again, you have to be able to move this little screw here to adjust it and set it where you want that to be, to line up with whatever number that you choose here, okay? And to do reverse, you're going to use this little lever. You're going to push it all the way up, and that's actually going to feed the fabric in reverse. So I'm going to check my tension and the stitches to see what it looks like here. Here we go. All right, love the sound of that 201. All right. So that actually looks pretty good. That's the front, and that's the back. So pretty happy with that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started with sewing down that inseam. And of course, to back stitch, you're going to push all that up and back stitch. Okay, so at this point, you should have both of your inseams sewn. You've placed one pair pant leg right side out inside of the other pant leg, and you want to make sure that you have right sides together, and this is the inseam that you're actually looking at. Make sure you have the notches marked. You have the pieces for the back, of which I've gone with my little heat erasable pen and marked that B for back, and the opposite side will be the front. And moving on to step 2, that's where you're going to turn one leg out, put it inside. And again, this is the inseam that you're going to be stitching up here. Okay, so once that's done, at this point, you just want to start getting your elastic cut to fit to the measurements of the waist. You're going to stitch your casing along the top here. Insert that elastic, and usually I just take a safety pin, put that through the edge of the elastic, and thread it through your casing, making sure you're going to tack it down on one side so you don't lose that open end, and fold that casing in to clean finish the top. Either hand stitch that edge closed, or you can put a couple stitches in there with your machine and determine the appropriate hem, and that is it. Your lounge pants will be done. So I'm going to sew up this inseam, and I will meet you at the sewing machine. And right along the crotch area, you want to make sure that you actually go over this crotch seam twice, because it's a very high tensile strength area. A lot of tensions there, you know, in the loungewear, especially for guys. So you want to make sure that you do a couple passes with your stitching here, And sometimes you can even go in within the seam allowance, you know, to put an extra reinforcement there. But you're going to stitch up the entire, you know, crotch seam all the way up here, the front and the back. Okay, so I have both of the inseams sewn because everything is so similar front and back with these pieces. I have marked the front with just an F to remind myself this is the front here. And at this point, what you want to do next, again, is to cut down your elastic of your waistband. And looking at the instructions, under the notions, usually it tells you what size of elastic you actually need. So my guess it's probably a 1/2 inch up to 3/4 of an inch, but it does say to cut the piece of elastic the length of your waist measurement plus 1 inch, and it's actually showing on this step number 7 here. I mentioned that safety pin threaded through to pull it through the casing, this channel that you're going to create, tacking it down on one end so you don't lose it, and fold it over to make that clean finish to overlap. But again, on the directions, I don't really see where it says the width of the elastic. So depending on, again, the width of the casing that you create, some people like a wider casing, you know, on their trousers. I'm probably gonna go with just a simple 1 inch and do probably a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch casing elastic. They also recommend on these directions, if you follow it verbatim, when you're doing the casing, they did a 1/4 inch fold underneath, fold it over again. I actually just did a serge to the top, and then I will go in and probably just fold this in once, fold it in again to get a clean finish. But it's completely fine if you wanted to just fold in this top area to do the waistband casing over. I mean, it's only lounge pants because it's actually already a clean finish there. So that's a personal choice. So once I do that, I'm gonna move on to the hem, and these will be done. I'm gonna move over to the embroidery machine and put a cute little monogram as well. Okay, so I have my elastic cut to the circumference of the waist, the measurement around the waist. I have the safety pin threaded through. And remember, once you made your casing all around, you're going to leave an area open so that you can get the elastic through. So I'm going to pretty much feed my elastic all the way through. And sometimes you just want to make sure your pin is small enough to actually fit through the opening that you have created. If your safety pin is too large or your elastic piece is too big, it's not going to go through. So you want to pick that appropriately as well. And you can see how I'm feeding it through. You push and you pull, you push and you pull, and you have to work your way all around. And of course, once this end here gets to the edge, you want to tack it down so you don't lose it. So we'll work on that. All right, so I've completed the casing. You can actually see the inside of it here. The elastic is sewn all around, nice and neat. And remember, I marked an F on the front to remind myself this is the actual front of the pant because it's so similar to the back until I put a tag or, you know, however you determine. You can look at the crotch length. It's definitely longer in the back and, you know, and wider for this person. So that's one way I could tell even if I forgot. But I would recommend that you mark it. So at this point, I've clean finished my hem. I'm going to go in and do a 1 inch hem all around. And again, because I've serged it, you technically can just turn it under and stitch all around. You could also turn it in 1/4 of an inch over the serged casing and then double fold it as well if you would like it to look that way. But finishing up the hem and put on the pocket, and that's it. All right, so here's a view of the pocket that I have stitched down. Basically, you know, I just winged it with the pattern. I cut out a square, I think it was about 6 inches by 6.5 inches, and clean finished the edges, folded it in, or you could serge all around. So both of those sides, right sides together, flip them out, and basically stitched it on to the back. So it's a nice deep pocket here, and at this point, I'm moving on to the hem. So once again, I have serged the edge here, and I'm gonna go with a 1 inch hem. So once I fold that amount in, right, I'm gonna go in and just stitch all around, and lounge pants will be completed. All right, so we've made it to the end. We're finishing up the hem. We're gonna stitch that all the way around here. And instead of going with the 1 inch, I actually went with a 1/2 inch because he's grown, I'm pretty sure, quite a bit. So all around, nice press to have it nice and crisp, and you're done. All right, guys, so this is the finished product, the lounge pants, pajama pants, Simplicity 2290. That's a view of the finished hem, inside and out. Nice clean finish. That's our elastic casing of the waistband, inside and out, nice clean finish. And there's a view from the back with the pocket, nice deep pocket there on the back. So again, if this tutorial was helpful for you in any way, please like, share, consider subscribing to the channel, following my sewing, design, and embroidery projects. Usually I post once a week, sometimes twice. I'm also on TikTok, House of Akoti Design, Instagram at House of Akoti, and Facebook, House of Akoti Design and Gifts. So again, follow me as I continue my retirement gig. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.